Good Monday evening to you. How the heck are you this evening, everybody? I, of course, am Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver. It's good to see you. It's good to be seen by you. And tonight we have got a guest on. This cat has been on the show once before. He's a great member of our community. He's got his own YouTube channel, by the way, which you should check out. He is the Dungeon Minister on YouTube. He has some absolutely fantastic content. But I want to preface this. I want to preface this by saying sometimes I have guests on the show because they have created something game related. Sometimes I just think it's going to be interesting to talk to them. Sometimes it's because they have a thing that they're promoting, which I guess kind of falls into the first thing. One of the big reasons I have having Dungeon Minister on tonight is because of something he mentioned in like the comments of a video that was going by. And I'm going to let him tell you about it, but it ties very heavily, whether you're subscribed to the Dungeon Minister or to my channel and you're on the Discord and you saw the very terrible MS Paint mock-up I put together of the cover of Mazes and Monsters, the Tom Hanks turkey about the D&D Satanic Panic. You may kind of know a little bit about where we're going, but I'm going to stop tripping over my own tongue here and bring on the Dungeon Minister because he's awesome and let him tell us this story because this is too cool. So good evening to you. How are you, Padre?
Good evening to you. I'm well. How are things in the Delver household?
Humid and disorganized as always down here in Florida. So,
but before we get an hour and a half into this, do I sound okay? And am I lagging at all?
No, not at all. You are 5x5.
Good. Yeah, last time I was on, it was I was using my laptop, and it was rather horrible. Really, I went back and I watched it later, and oh, good heavens, you barely understand me. Which is normal. You can barely understand me, but this was worse.
But so as it happens, a couple of weeks ago, you were sitting out there in stands, as it were, the peanut gallery. I don't precisely remember what we were talking about. I don't keep track of the show, guys. I don't. And you said, yeah, when I was a kid, we used to play D&D in the storm trains in my neighborhood. And I was like, stop talking now because I want a full explanation of that live. You're going to stand in front of the class and repeat what you just said. So that's why I had to do the Mazes and Monster box mock-up. And it's funny. I remember when that thing came out on VHS, like back in the 80s, like Tom Hanks had been in that, Bosom Buddies. He'd done some stand-up, and he was in Splash. Oh, and Bachelor Party. He was in Bachelor Party.
I had no idea he did stand-up. That would be awful.
Yeah. So he, the VHS cover from EMI or CBS Fox or whoever put it out was the entire ensemble. It was everybody that was, and he's just lost in the background. He's just one of the like 5 characters, and now they get like the full retouched headshot of him leaning in with that little smirk on his face and this kind of vaguely D&D background in the title. So everybody else just got pushed off the cover, and it's just Tom Hanks in. So I had to go with that and show off my MS Paint skills. And a better person would have done a better job at putting that together.
Maybe a more experienced graphic designer, but no better person.
Thank you very much. So let's just dive headfirst into the storm grate. What in the heck were you doing? Right, just start.
Okay, so I just as some background, I was running a game for friends of mine. We were all in the same class, and I'd say we were. It was the summer between. It was the summer between junior and senior year,
Okay.
and earlier when I was like 11 or 12, my briefly had some stepbrothers that lasted about 11 months, but we lived a couple of blocks from a place where a storm drain came out. And being 11 or 12, we dove into it, right? It only went about, I don't know, 100 yards or something. And it just straight in, it turned once, that was it. The neat thing is where it turned, there was a little room because they didn't really have, like in plumbing, you have plastic joints to put your plumbing together, but they just put the tube in and they built a little room and they, built another tube going on the other side. So it was kind of neat. It was a little room down here. Anyway, so fast forward to as a teenager, we're playing this game. And it occurs to me that what I had done back when I was 11 was essentially, going through underground passageways and coming to little rooms. And so I wanted to go down again because we were thick into D&D. We were playing pretty much every week. So there was a sort of a charm to the whole idea of going underground and whatnot. And relatively close to my house, I grew up in Janesville, Wisconsin, down the road really from Lake Geneva. I had no idea how close I was to the Holy Land, really. But there was pretty close to our house. There was a pair of storm drains that came out into a little gully and a little trickle of water that would eventually made its way down to the river that goes through Janesville. So I thought, well, check those out. And we went in one, and it went a ways, and I think it turned once, and then led to little pipes that you couldn't get through. So I thought, well, I want to find out more about this. So I actually went down to the city hall, the town hall, where for a nominal fee, any taxpayer, or apparently the child of any taxpayer, could purchase a complete map of the storm sewer system for the whole town, for the whole city. So that's what I did, this big, huge thing. And it showed the whole city plan and all where the storm drains were. And selling this to a teenager is the stupidest thing any city official has ever done. But I went and I bought one and saw that the second tube, the second storm drain, actually went in and branched off, and it went really far. So great, we'll go in that one. And it was one of those situations where I was probably the DM for a reason. Like if I said, "Oh, let's go do this thing," then my friends said, oh, "Okay, let's go do that thing." Right? And so I said, "Let's go explore these tunnels." Okay, all right. And so it'd be like D&D. Okay, all right. And that we had this is not a linear story. It keeps branching out, and I apologize.
That's fine.
I had a neighbor, or we had a neighbor. The immediate neighbor to us had this huge yard, and so through their yard you could get into the backyards of everyone else around in the block. And one of these folks, behind their garage, so they couldn't see from their house, but it was plainly visible from the Stasio brothers' backyard, was a pile of conduit, a conduit and some copper piping. They were going to do electrical work or plumbing, or they had done it, they had leftover, whatever, and it sat there. And weeds grew up through it, and it sat there for months and months. Possibly understanding the larcenous nature of what I was doing, or possibly just thinking, oh, it's just here. Like the trees are here and the grass is here. It's just here. I just took some of it and found that by bending metal pipe over and over, you eventually break it. And by applying, this is really embarrassing to tell. By applying a lot of electrical tape, you can make a little handle, a little hilt.
Okay.
So we had all of these sections of conduit and copper piping as swords and whatnot. I said, well, I'll take our swords, And keep in mind, at this point, we're like 16 or 17 years old. So this,
Mhm.
we surely really should have been beyond that. I really should have been beyond this by that time, but I wasn't. So we went down to these tunnels, and I led the way in, and unbeknownst to the group, I'd filled my pocket with quarters and dimes and nickels and stuff. I wish this had been in Canada, because here, like, the dollar and the $2 have coins, right? That's a lot more. You can't drop
Right.
paper. But as I went through, I would, we'd stop for a little bit. I put my hand in my pocket and surreptitiously draw out some coins. And then as I crawled along, and because you're kind of working on stooped over, as we crawled along, I'd surreptitiously drop some. And then, sure enough, behind me, hey, look, there's money down here. Oh, what? Really, there is? Cool, it's treasure. And this thing had all sorts of branches, and side tunnels off of it that we would go down and explore. The most exciting thing we found, other than a porn magazine at the very entrance,
Because of course.
of course. Well, there was an area where the two tunnels connected, and it's sort of a shelf area between. Like, it was, I don't know why they connected, but they did. And someone had a stack of, and it was like the lowest grade. Like, it wasn't a brand you've heard of. It was named after a part of female anatomy, kind of magazine. Other than that, the most exciting thing we found were 3 dead mice, all lined up like they were arranged for burial. It was creepy. And then, well, I won't say that. At the end of the thing, because it's all those concrete tubes, right?
Right.
And at some points they get smaller, and then you're going from a stooped walk to crawling. And then they opened up, and we were under one of the main streets of the town. And it opened up into actually a corridor. I mean, you could stand up in it, and it was brick. It wasn't cement. It was this brick thing with an arched roof, arched ceiling.
Okay.
And wherever there were storm grates, there's sunlight streaming in and everything. So it was very dungeon-esque. It was very castle-like. So that was fun. And we got to the end of that, and there were more pipes, and we went into some of them. But by that point, most of the group was getting a little freaked out. Like, how long are we going to be down in the sewers? And then every once in a while, foamy water would come past because someone was washing their car.
Oh, right, yeah.
It wasn't connected. I hasten to add, this was the storm sewers, and they were not connected to the toilet systems.
This is not part of wastewater management. This is literally just street drains.
Just street drains. Yes, that's what I tell myself when I remember the wet socks.
Right.
Yeah. So we went through, and we went and did that. It was, that was about the size of, we probably did that about 4 or 5 times, though, because I had a map, right? So now we could go anywhere.
So this wasn't just a one-off then. This was a campaign. This was an underground campaign.
Yeah, it was a whole thing. It led up, eventually we fought an ogre. No, it was, it was over the course of a summer. It was that summer between junior and
Local
senior
homeless man murdered. Police baffled.
Bodies wash up. Conduit pipe found. Yeah. So it was a bit of an adventure summer, and it was just because we were all complete dorks. I mean, we were total dorks. I mean, I use the past tense. That's probably
right. Yeah, much cooler now.
Much cooler.
Not the sartorial picture of laid back internet cool guy that you are now. No, you dorks then. No. Now, no.
Total idiot. But no, but it was that. It was like it was that summer when a couple of us got girlfriends, and so. We started playing D&D less, and we certainly didn't go into the storm sewers anymore after that. But it was that. I think it was that summer that because now we were seniors, right? So even a dorky senior is still a senior. So
right. If you're going down into the storm drain, it better be because you filched a 4-pack of wine coolers, right?
I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd had that kind of I didn't. I was such a straight and narrow. Like I still am. Like I have a glass of wine and a vodka cooler, but that's about as risky as my life has ever gotten.
No.
But I did want to add, though, that same period of my life, for that summer and the summer previous, I worked at the Bristol, Wisconsin Renaissance Festival. So the LARPing was not contained to just the storm drains.
Oh my!
The Renaissance Festival with the wildly inaccurate historical depictions, and I remember they actually got on us. The fair organizers got on the merchants, because I didn't work for the fair. I worked for a merchant within the fair selling leather goods, actually. And the fair organizers were writing us about our costumes, and that they needed to be historically plausible. It didn't have to be,
Not accurate.
Not accurate, plausible. That was the same summer they hired someone to dress up as an elf with pointed ears, in this gossamer costume and wander around the fair. I'm like, really? You're on me because I'm wearing a shirt that didn't get introduced until the 1700s, and you've got this elf around. I'm sure those weren't introduced at all until much later. Anyhow, so I spent a lot of time as a sort of Miniver Chivi, wishing that I lived in a different world.
Oh, I can imagine. So I got to ask you. I got a feeling I know the answer to this question, but I'll ask anyway. Do you still have that map you made?
I wish.
Oh, man.
No,
because you'd have to, if you had that, if you found that or something, you'd have to base a campaign for the boys on that.
I could probably go from memory on a couple, because we went into one of them twice. The first one we went back into another time, and so I bet I could base one on memory on that. Yeah, no, that map. I mean, it was massive. I mean, I think it was 4 feet by 4 feet. You roll it across the dining room table that took the entire table, and my mother had been retiling in the kitchen. She did a backsplash, and I had splashed water or spilled water or something, and she hadn't sealed the grout yet, and so it spoiled the grout. I still don't understand these things, and I've renovated a house. I still don't know why that was a problem, but anyway, it was, and it was probably a bad week, month, year for my mother, whatever. Because she really snapped at me about this, and she said, "How would you like if I destroyed something that you loved?" And the map happened to be there, and she ripped it.
Oh.
I could probably get another $12 together and go buy another one, but I didn't. Yeah. But I just found that the idea that you could go down to City Hall and get this huge blueprint, and you had to order in advance. You had to tell them you went down and you paid for it, and then you go down later and pick it up. The fact that you could do that, though, like, what business do I have knowing where the storm drains? I guess, taxpayer money, it's your storm drain, but it felt weird to have access to that. And especially for a teenager, like, you'd think they would have, I don't know, just said, no, I don't trust what you're going to go do in it. Probably wine coolers.
Yeah, exactly. You're picking that up and you say, by the way, what's a county ordinance like on purchasing tannerite? I'm asking for a friend.
just
by the way, YouTube, by tannerite, I mean a substance made from tanned skins, for tanning skins. Certainly nothing else.
Nothing else.
No. So you just went full ham. You had a dungeon map. You laid out treasure. You had weapons there. Now, were you cognizant of either Mazes and Monsters or the whole James Dallas Egbert thing?
No, I didn't hear about Mazes and Monsters. I think was on it was on some cable channel when I was in university. And I didn't even watch the whole thing. I said, "Oh, it's about Dungeons and Dragons. Cool." And then I realized it's not really about Dungeons and Dragons. It's kind of, and so I probably watched 30 minutes of it and tuned out. And I had no idea that it was based on, well, vaguely, loosely, passingly based on an actual event.
Mhm.
I had no idea that it was in any way attached to any real life anything. Me entirely, and it's weird because my grandmother was very, very, very conservative, religious. You'd think if anyone in the family was going to object to this game, she would, but she had these very strong religious views. She had this very strong faith, but she actually didn't. She never got hung up on that stuff, right? That never bothered her. She actually thought it was all great fun and like to talk about dragons and that kind of stuff. I still remember we have a book which just lends to the whole thing, because the whole LARPing thing is like wanting to live in that world, it is a Miniver-Chivi thing. It's I don't want to be in this world, I want to be in that world. Right. And she had this book. It's a gnomes. You know, the thing about gnomes, and it discusses them as if they actually exist. Mm-hmm. So she loved all that stuff. She was fine on it. So the whole satanic panic thing just missed me entirely. I didn't even know that it was a thing until much, much later when I heard people talk about it. And really, I didn't realize how big it was. I mean, I heard about it more in music. The whole, you know, if you play this record backward, it gives you some secret message, you know. I heard that. But I didn't hear about it affecting gaming until I started doing the YouTube channel, really. And I started before I did the channel, I started watching other people's channels. And some of them would talk about the satanic, especially old school D&D players would talk about the satanic panic. And it had never occurred to me that it was a big deal. It just wasn't part of my world at all. So the fact that I was mucking around in the storm drains, you know, with conduit pipe and dropping nickels, and probably wouldn't have bothered my grandmother at all, other than the potential for safety issues. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think you were following in good footsteps anyway. I remember reading interviews with Gary and him talking about, obviously well before he invented D&D, but he and his friends similarly in Wisconsin crawling into storm drains and so on and et cetera, and just exploring things for the sake of it, of exploring them. But certainly there was probably I would say you were likely in good company, and maybe not in your own local municipality. But the thing about the James Dallas Egbert storm drain thing, or steam tunnels, actually, even that was a fabrication.
Oh yeah, because that wasn't where he was at all.
Yeah, no, he played D&D at either his college or some other college. Other students played D&D, and there's always this rumor knocking around that one of the big D&D clubs would LARP and play in the steam tunnels under the university. Right. But everybody says, well, I think it was this group over here, or I thought it was that group over there. And everybody's saying, no, it was them. Egbert never went into the steam tunnels. The whole, William Deere getting involved in the investigation and so on, and his parents saying, oh, he would go down and play Dungeons and Dragons at the steam. I mean, even he, before the tragedy that ended his life, was like, yeah, no, I would, why would I do that?
Right.
So it's kind of a funny mix of pop culture and moral panic. The idea of, the whole thing that kicks off with Mazes and Monsters is one of the players in the game does that. They go down into steam tunnels, and I'm sure it's entirely because they gave a handful of misreported newspaper clippings to Rona Jaffe, who, by her own admission, said she had never seen a Dungeons and Dragons book. they said, hey, we want you to write this on spec. And she basically knocked it out in 2 weeks.
Right.
And just picked up the tiny bits of information about D&D from the newspaper articles, which were entirely sensationalist.
Yeah, well, and written by people who also had only a passing knowledge of it. It's like the Umberto Eco book, Foucault's Pendulum, which is all about secret societies and hidden messages, and it turns out that the secret society, the secret they have is that they have a secret. That's it.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is just a fabrication of rumors based on suppositions, and there's nothing, there's no there. There's no center to it. And
Yeah.
the Egbert thing was just, I mean, I've read about it since, and it's just you got a kid who's got some emotional, mental issues going on, and it gets tied in, it gets wrapped in with all this other garbage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes, Chris Kane, Foucault's Pendulum's awesome.
Yeah. Personally, I think, this is just my opinion, Name of the Rose edges it out because we have a dungeon map in Name of the Rose. Name of the Rose is not just a great novel, it's got useful gaming material in it.
It does have useful gaming material. Although Foucault's Pendulum could become something too. He starts in a cabinet, as I recall the book. The book starts as a person in a cabinet observing something, and the pendulum is swinging, and the whole point of the pendulum is that it swings from a point that doesn't exist. So it's a metaphor. It's an image to describe the book as a whole, and that it and as it swings and it traces this arc in sand, I think, underneath it, but there's nothing actually happening. It's
right.
attached to it's attached to nothing. It swings off a point that doesn't exist, and so it's all motion and show and not about anything. It's such a neat thing. But yes, you don't get an actual physical.
Yes, you get a dungeon map in Name of the Rose. It's a fantastic movie. It's a fantastic book. I recommend them both. But and another one of the things, I kind of want to keep this light and convivial and not focus on the bad. But I think when we're talking about people's misconception about playing D&D and whether you're LARPing in the storm drains or whatever, is so many people conflate and confound what Bink Pulling and James Dallas Egbert. I mean, there were two separate cases, and in either case, it was two extremely troubled young men who, let's face it, 3 years before, and it would have been for each of them, and it would have been well, it's drugs. It's drugs. 3 years after, it would have been, well, it's video games or heavy metal.
Mm-hmm. And it was those things for a while, right?
Yeah.
There were other cases, and it was one of those things where there's a relatively new cultural phenomena happening, so people didn't understand it. There was and it was still relatively localized. Like now, it'd be like Hercules fighting the Hydra. I mean, there's 1.5 million different companies producing this stuff now. But it was kind of TSR, and that was it. I mean, there were other companies, but for serious sales, serious reach, it was TSR, and that was it. So there was a bad guy you could put up, right? And God bless Gary, he didn't do himself any favors when he tried to defend it and explain it, and it. He was built for sitting in a room with a bunch of gamers playing a game. He was not built for getting on TV, right?
Right.
So, bless.
And I had I had this discussion. As a friend of mine asked me today, what did Gary think about the whole satanic panic thing as it related to D&D? And that's Aurora. Hello, I'm reading your question off of the Discord. But this is basically, as far as what Gary thought about it, he thought it was regrettable. He thought that it was a shame that people reacted the way to it. But he relates the infamous interview he did with 60 Minutes. Morley Safer came up there and they spent hours just strolling around Lake Geneva, nice pleasant day, and he showed him where, that's my favorite restaurant, and this and that, and had a very pleasant time. Got back to Gary's office. They shot 10 minutes of actual interview, a little bit of B-roll, thank you very much, and left. And next thing Gary saw of that interview, when it came on 60 Minutes, they had taken, like, if they ask him a question, is the sky green? No. Is the sea pink? No. Is the sidewalk concrete? Yes. Well, we need a yes answer. And when we asked him this question and he said no, we really needed a yes answer. So take that yes and just cut it and paste it. And they did a hatchet job on it.
Yeah.
It was 2 minutes of back and forth questions, all of them edited in a way that made Gary come off like a callous a-hole. But that's what they do. That's what CBS does to everyone. So that irritated him. But after that aired, he said sales were never, ever better.
Well, there's no such thing as bad press, right?
There's no such thing as bad press. And he said to me, he said, Bill, they got to buy the books if they want to burn them.
That's very true.
And that's, kids, parents grab up the D&D books and Dragon magazines and modules and graph paper and dice, throw it on the back barbecue. Kid sneaks out with his Christmas money, his birthday cash, his paper route money, and buys more and then hides them.
Buys it all again. He puts it all in the storm drain system.
Yeah,
between porn magazines. A stack, so they don't get found.
Exactly. So would that be considered like you were on a low level of the dungeon and ran into a succubus? I mean, carve that out. There you go.
But it would be like a kobold succubus, a goblin succubus. It'd be tempting to a goblin, maybe. You're like,
or like the Lucrata in AD&D. They sound like a beautiful woman calling for help, and you run around the corner and it's this mangy horse dog combination with a skeletal muzzle and all.
That's once you get past the cover. Yeah, things go downhill quickly.
Oh, well, she's an attractive young lady. Oh God. But I think that the ultimate shot at the naysayers with D&D was from Gary. If people think Dungeons and Dragons is real, they should try spending the gold.
There is that.
I know the answer to this, but I'm going to let you answer because Squire Kev has a question. What did you finally end up calling your statue bust? There were a few suggestions that were quite good, and I know what it is, but please tell our audience your.
So the voting came down to Saint Beckme.
Saint Beckme.
Yes. So we have to turn it. We can't. I know you object to the acronyms, but we can't call him Saint Becmi. So it's Saint Beckme. That was it. And I was actually surprised because there were names that I thought were going to go all the way to the last round that got ditched in the early going, and names that I thought like, maybe that went all the way to the end. I won't say which ones because all of them were suggested by my viewers. I did give each of my boys a vote in each of the tiers, but I only gave them one vote each, so they only got a little bit of say. It's Saint Beckme. And actually, we didn't have any contest for it because someone suggested it, and it was so good that I didn't need to think about it. The gargoyle that sits kind of beside or right in front of Saint Beckme is Gary the Gargoyle, in honor of Gary.
I love it. I think my suggestion. I don't. Did you do a live stream on the voting for Saint Beckme's name, or was it just a video?
No, it was just a video. I just did polls for for the voting, and then I did I don't have the guts to do a live stream other than on someone else's channel, so that if it goes badly, I just don't link over to it. Never happened.
See, I don't have the mental wherewithal to or patience to edit.
No.
So yeah, I very few edited videos.
I'm an only child. I'm an only child, so I need to control everything. So the editing process allows me to cut out all the other stuff.
I see. Now, because the reason I was asking is I couldn't remember if I had commented live or if I had said it. My thought was Martin. So it was Saint Martin, because I was thinking of the statue that Rutger Hauer and his band found in Flesh and Blood. But I guess in retrospect, it's probably good that you didn't go with Saint Martin, because then you'd have to explain the movie Flesh and Blood to your sons, and that's probably not appropriate.
I could just go to the actual Saint Martin, who was a lovely saint who gave half of his cloak to a beggar, and in a vision later, he found that beggar had been Christ. That's a good example to follow. That's soldier saint, and he was a soldier, right? He's a guy who knew how to use a sword, so it would be okay with the whole D&D thing. It would have worked.
Okay, that would have worked. But Beckme, I think, is a fine name for your statue.
I thought it was. There was a couple of ones that I thought were gonna. Again, I won't mention because I don't want to indicate. I don't want to cause dissension among the ranks. But there was a couple that I thought were going to do much better than they did, and a couple that I thought those are stinkers. They're never going to go anywhere. And they went a couple rounds in at least. I think all of the ones that got to the end, I think were all excellent choices. Though I think they were all good options. I would have been happy with whatever they ended up. Saint Thaco, someone says Brodo the bling bearer. Bling bearer. I like that.
Well, if you get another bust of some kind, there you go. You getting some good stuff. And I find YouTube is really we decry, and I think rightly so. A lot of guys our age, we decry social media because it's generally awful, but we make the best out of what we can, right? I mean, just because 10 miles down the beach has got garbage washing up on shore and 5 miles up the beach has got garbage washing up on shore doesn't mean we can't take a rake to this patch and make it a nice place to be.
Right.
So I find that we can have a lot of good outreach here, and I think better outreach than the old forum days. I mean, I 3 times back when I used to just have a web page and a forum to support it, on 3 separate occasions, I had sponsored contests, and on 2 of those. No, one of those, the prize was a huge prize the Dwarven Forge gave me. They're like, tell us who won it, and we'll ship them some sets of Dwarven Forge. Cool. And I said, hey, it was like submit an adventure. Like literally just create an adventure, create a short adventure. Your map would have to fill up at least one 8.5 by 11 graph page. It doesn't have to be every square, right. But it's a red dragon lair. It's got 88 hit points and guards 10,000 gold pieces and a +1 sword. No, you couldn't do that. And so here you go, Dwarven Forge. I had zero entries. I had no entry. I ran the thing for its normal time and then went over 2 more weeks. And finally I messaged someone, sorry, Dwarven Forge. Yes, the fix was in, I guess. In retro, I messaged a friend of mine who very much enjoyed using Dwarven Forge because he's blind, completely blind, and being able to feel dungeon maps that he could put down was such a help to him. And I just emailed him and I said, draw 4 or 5 rooms on a piece of graph paper so I can at least say that there was a winning submission. And so he had his he had his wife just roughly sketch out a map, scan it, and send it to me. And said, "Hey, congratulations, you're the winner." But now on Facebook, on YouTube, the engagement's a lot better. I think.
Yeah, it's more immediate.
Even for us folks down here in our little classic Dungeons and Dragons corner.
Speaking, incidentally, of people with sight impairments playing the game and figuring out where things are, etc., and being able to use terrain, there's a YouTuber that I watch, RPGs and more. His name's John, and he did a whole thing on. He has limited vision. He's not blind, but he did a whole thing on gaming with people with visual impairments, and he's developed a system that employs a piece of pegboard and then terrain with pegs on the bottoms of it, and he'll put he glues pegs onto the bottoms of miniatures, so that way, as the person is reaching out to feel the map to find out where their mini is, where the monster is, they don't get knocked over, they don't get moved around, they don't get shuffled.
That's excellent.
Yeah, he puts all the stuff, like, I mean, if there's a room with a fire pit and there's miniatures and whatnot, he puts the whole thing out, and with the pegs, they don't move around. Now, it does limit, like, you have to be on a hole, right? The peg has to, so it limits the sort of finesse you can do with positioning. But again, if you're talking about visual impairment, it's going to be, if you're feeling with your hands, it's going to be more approximate anyway. It's not going to be as like, oh, I'm this far to the left or this far to the right. It's sort of, okay, I'm about that far away from the opponent, and there's a wall between us. So, okay.
Right.
So that was a neat system, a neat idea.
That is great. And I think I have said many times before, I have miniatures in Dwarven Forge out on the table because it looks cool.
Yeah.
It is helpful in saying, okay, this room is 30 feet wide by 100 feet long. Yeah, you reckon you can safely detonate a fireball in here.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and who has been in, I think most of us at some point, but who can instantly visualize what 100-foot by 30-foot room looks like? Like, you know, that's not something that I just call to mind right away. I know that our house is 70 feet from front to back and 20 feet from side to side. So I kind of have those in mind. But it gets much beyond that. And I don't know where 100 feet starts and 200 feet ends. You know, like, I don't know. It's big. Yeah. So having the stuff down does help. You know.
It really does.
But for me, the reason when we use miniatures. Oh, one of us is lagging. Probably me.
No, I've got you. Go ahead.
There we go.
I can hear you. All right.
Okay. No, I find when we use miniatures, and we don't always, but when we do, it's largely because I'm playing with kids, right? And the 7-year-old in particular, you know, the focus goes. So it's handy to have the thing there which grabs him. You know, it's easy for him to focus that way.
Yeah, I mean, and it is a big draw. When I started doing, when I started going to local wargaming cons, which I did for many years, they said, look, you can come and you can run role-playing games, but they have to have a visual element. We're a wargaming con. And they did have other people come in and run RPGs, but the RPG crowd weirded them out because they were all theater of the mind. And these guys are playing like, you know, Battle of Antietam. And these are guys who literally have one miniature to represent everybody in a given regiment for the North and everybody in a given regiment for the South, and little hills. And if they, you know, if this tree was just a stump on that day, then that's a stump right there on the foam board that they have painted and flocked and everything like that. So when I rolled in with Dwarven Forge, they're like, oh, finally somebody who, you know, games properly, who does tabletop gaming properly, not like these weirdos that just sit there and talk to each other. And I remember, like, the first day when I started putting up Dwarven Forge, just people slowly coming, like, because this was 2004, Dwarven Forge was really only a few years old at that point. They were like, that's really cool looking. I thought I'd heard about something like that. And every year, well, the cons were twice yearly. I would have full tables. I never had an issue with, gosh, I hope I get some signups. It was always the opposite problem. I would have 12 slots on my sign up sheet at the front of the con, and people would put sticky notes or, write their name up the side, like, if you have room, please let me,
Well, that's it. I mean, as old as we get, we're all really just kids playing with toys, aren't we? You see stuff. Oh wow, that's cool.
I mean,
I still love model train sets. I don't have the patience or the skill to make them. I wish I did. I wish I had a room. I wish I had any room whatsoever. But the detail that goes into it, and again, I think it probably attaches to a sort of Miniver Chibi thing. There's another world there.
mm-hmm.
You can enter it visually. You can get into it, and it's delightful. Even dolls' houses. I love dolls' houses. We've got 3 boys, so I missed out on the whole dollhouse thing. But fabulous! This little room, and you can make little furniture. I would so be one of those dads out in the garage, making furniture, more interested in the dollhouse than his daughter. Right? You're like, oh, look! I've got a dresser set, and the drawer is actually open. Look, I'd be that dad because I love that stuff.
Well, I go for the crossover stuff. Like I see miniature furniture in, if my wife wants to go to Michael's or some other arts and crafts store for something for sewing, I'll drift over to the hobby section, and of course there's dollhouse stuff there, and I'm like, I wonder if I could use that in a D&D game. That's a little.
Oh, I can't say this too loud because my boys are in the next room. I went to a Michael's, and well after Halloween, but they still had some of the Halloween decorations. And you know how there used to be Christmas villages, and now there's Halloween villages?
I have seen those, yeah.
First of all, what happened? When did that happen?
They still do the Christmas village stuff.
They do. But anyway, so there was this Halloween village, and most of it was kind of cartoony. But there was this well, and it's got the well and the bucket, and it's got little skulls all over it. That is going to show up in a future adventure.
Excellent, man. That is awesome. See, good.
And it lights up too.
Of course, good crafting stuff is definitely where you get it. It's not to hand, and getting it down to put it on the camera would not. It just wouldn't work. But I have for 1 year, my wife got me a Tudor in 28 millimeter scale from Miniature Building Authority, and the thing is, it's like that wide, that high. It's nuts. It is just an incredible piece of terrain. It's not that far off scale from my Victorian Christmas village. I just put it out on when I put up the Victorian Christmas village 1 year, I was like, you know what? This sits in a box way too long.
Yeah.
Way too frequently. I unwrapped it. I set it down. It worked perfectly. So that year,
just fine.
My Christmas village had a lovely Tudor inn.
Well, the real question though, Bill, is have your Dungeons and Dragons parties ever adventured through a Victorian village? I think that's the real question.
I have not brought the Christmas village out to use as gaming terrain. I may one day. I do Christmas themed games for my Monday night group every year. So 1 year I just might have to break it out and point the camera at the table because we're all remote.
You could do a whole thing where the adventurers have to face off against 3 ghosts, right? A ghost of their past, which assaults them with all the crimes of their past, and as the DM, you know them all, right? Like all of the things that they and they have to confront and defeat somehow in some way, shape, or form those, and then a ghost of their present, right? That whatever current dynamic, whatever current bad guy they're facing off, some element of that comes in, and then future gets real scary. Like What are we facing?
Well, that's when I grab Expedition to the Barrier Peaks.
Yes, this is your future.
Androids and laser guns.
Here is your future. Enjoy.
Yes, but I could, I could totally do something like that. But yeah, I mean, having a visual, regardless of what you do, but I think it's important, to come back to basics, if you will, is, you don't have to LARP. You don't have to have Dwarven Forge. You don't have to have minis. I mean, I very gently tease people when they would come by the table and say, "That's really cool looking, but that's a lot of stuff." And I just have a battle mat, and we use little counters with like images I've downloaded off the web and printed and scanned and cut circles, and those are our counters. And I'll just usually go, "Yeah, a lot of poor people do say that."
I will hear your confession later for that, Bill.
Yes. Well, I tease. I tease. But no, I honestly, you don't need anything except this.
Yeah.
And
or some paper chits, apparently.
Or some paper chits. Exactly. I had a buddy of mine, and I've talked about him on the show before, Gods and Monsters, which if you get down here, Padre, have you been down to the Sunshine State before?
Not even when I was living in the United States had I ever gone. I think I've dipped south of the Mason-Dixon line about twice in my life, and I was in Tennessee, I was in Kentucky, Virginia, but I know I've never been down to the Sunshine State. And the thing is, now that I'm in Canada, it's more likely because Canadians go down to Florida like nobody's business.
Yes. Yes, you do.
Half the people you see on a daily basis are probably Canadian. So now that I'm a Canadian,
yeah, Ontario license plates. Yes. But no, if you make it down here, I got to take you out to Gods and Monsters. I've talked about it a lot on the show, but I've run games out there, and it's the same thing. I tell people you don't have to have an elaborate setup. You just have to want to play D&D.
Yeah. Oh, when I was a teenager, I had gobs of minis. I had gobs of them. Never painted them because I didn't trust myself, and we never used them. They were on my dresser in my bedroom. Never touched them. Never even thought of using them in the game. They were just things to look at, Well, my next hurdle to cross was, as you can see, I have the shelf of glory, the shelves, plural, of shame, the science fiction shelf of glory, and the science fiction shelf of shame. And you'll note that the shame outweighs the glory quite a lot. Thank you, Lord Corion. Thank you so much for the super chat. The ghost of characters lost, the ghost of players not present, the ghost of treasure yet taken. I love it. I absolutely love it. And we thank you very much for the super. But the thing, I would take, I was such a bigot. That's something I need to confess to. I was such a bigot when it comes to minis, metal minis. A miniature is metal. Plastic is for toys. And I wouldn't use the rubbery D&D minis. And I've explained why I got off of that mindset. And I went to the alpha mindset is hand painted metal minis only. The Sigma grind is all the plastic minis. And if you drop them on the floor, it doesn't matter to me, bro. Yeah.
Cause I was finding that half the time when I'd be sitting at the table and somebody'd be like, "Oh, so this guy is me." Yes. Scoop up a slice of pizza, shove it in their face, then reach over and pick up the mini.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just inside, hey!
Yeah, the mini that you spent, how many hours painting.
Yeah. Now it's a glistening sheen of little Caesars all over it, right? So yeah, no, I just if I do an event now, I'm just like, you guys stay home. Daddy's got to go to work.
It's that's the baseball that's too good to use, right? I just got this
Yes.
baseball. I'm not playing with it.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, yeah, I thought you got a new driver. You spent like $175 on that new driver. I'm not going to use it out here. Get it all
$175.
$175, man. That's a Titleist. I'm not using that with you guys.
No, I didn't trust myself in painting them, and I still like the metal minis I've got now. I got metal minis for the 4 characters in our campaign, my 3 boys and my wife's characters, and I haven't painted them, and I don't think I will. I've got a viewer who finds them. They're mostly Reaper. I think one is something else, and I have no idea. Like, I got them in the mail, and I tore the packages open and threw the packages. I don't care what read. I don't know. So, but I have a viewer who has since hunted up the characters. He's found 3 out of the 4 so far and painted them really, really well, like way better than I ever could. So, I'll leave that to people who know what they're doing. I'll paint some of them, I'll do some painting, but I find that the idea of painting the metal ones, I find daunting because I don't know how the surface is going to take it, because I've never done it. I don't know how the surface is going to take paint. I don't know how to prime it. I don't trust myself with any. I think it would just end up rolling right off. The plastic, partly because I know how it'll take paint better than, because I've never painted pewter before. I've painted plastic things before. I know how the plastic's going to take paint, and it's plastic. If it doesn't work, I scrub it off, start over, But somehow with the metal one, I just feel like I don't trust myself. I don't trust myself.
Well, I can tell you, and this is for our listeners right now. Painting miniatures, whether they're plastic or whether they're metal, is essentially the same process. First, start with the eyes. Don't wait to do the eyes last. A single very thinned coat of white primer is all you need. You just need something to help the paint stick just a little bit. And then you do 3 colors. You do a base coat, a slightly lighter highlight, and a slightly lighter highlight than that. And you can ink wash it if you want to make the surfaces pop. That's it. You're done.
Yeah, there's another channel I watch, DM James, and he does painting, and he talks about which one are you going to enter into some sort of convention contest? Which one are you going to take down to the local game shop and set up and say, look what I did? And then which one are you actually going to use at your table? And then if you've got an encounter and you're going to face 10 goblins, you're not painting each of those at displayed at the game shop level of quality. You're going to paint them so that you block it in, get it done. Does it look good from 5 feet away sitting on the table? Fine.
That's the exact thing. And I advise people on this when they paint. First of all, don't ever go to Cool Mini or Not. Cool Mini or Not is a lovely website with tons of beautifully painted miniatures, and it will destroy your desire to paint. You'll look at the people who've done miniatures that look like they could just walk across the screen. They're so well done. They look like real people just stopping and posing. And you're like, well, I can never paint like that. I'm just going to throw this paint in the trash. All of this goes in the garbage. Does it look good to you? And does it look good on your table?
Yeah.
That's really it.
And you know what, like I've done, well, again, our player characters are unpainted metal. Mostly I paint the minis, and again, it's just for the wow factor for the boys, because it keeps them, it keeps them engaged in what's happening. And so it's like what was that movie Pleasantville, where everything was in black and white, and then some things started showing up in color. It's like that, although the bad guys are in color and the good guys are still black and white. And it doesn't matter, right? Ultimately, the miniature is just there to show this is where your person is, this is where your character is. And they like the minis because they're cool minis. I took a long time picking them, so they all look pretty cool. So there's that. But they're not painted, unpainted. Heck, you could play with bottle caps. We had a bit where we were facing off against some bandits, and they were hiding behind a bunch of boxes, and I hadn't crafted any little boxes, so I threw dice on the table. There you go. There's the boxes. All the crates have these enormous dots painted on the side for some reason. Doesn't matter. It's just to show there's stuff there.
I love it. That's I think probably the most clever I've heard is gummies. Just using gummy, like green gummy bears are orcs, red gummy bears are kobolds, the yellow are goblins, of course. You need a dragon, gummy worm.
Gummy worm.
And it just works out.
A jar of jelly.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you're done, it's like, oh, I killed that orc. Now,
it's gone.
Just the player just gets to pick it up and eat it.
That's a good idea. Whoever kills the monster, whoever
kills the monster exactly. You maybe get a little bit more engagement out of your players that way.
Oh, you can make a dragon with Dorito wings and pretzel legs, and
there you go.
Thinking Vienna sausage body. I love it.
That might get the Vienna sausage body might get a little messy, but yeah, that's
Don't put the sauce on. Don't put the sauce on. Let them dip that in it later.
Yeah. You don't want to do that. Lord Corion points out correctly. They make giant gummy bears.
How do you even chew that?
I don't know. I do know that in Game of Thrones, when Daenerys eats the horse's heart, that was gummy. That was gummy covered in like a flake. So like, oh, this'll, and the actress was like, oh, this will be fine. It's just a big gummy thing. It smells not. No, she said, like, I got like 4 or 5 bites in, and it just tasted like chemicals.
Yeah, I went to because I was an actor before I was a priest, and so I went to university for theater with a guy who did a performance art piece. So you're not talking strictly theater, but it's theatrical. Anyway, he did a performance art piece in which he beforehand he made a whole bunch of gelatin mold human organs, and he ate them on stage. It was the early 90s. That's what was happening. I mean, there were people doing Broadway shows where all they did is walk on stage and turn on 7 radios tuned to different stations and then walked off, and the audience sat there for half an hour like, how long do we sit here before we go? So no, but so he ate all these organs on stage, and it was all just Jello. But
I can't imagine doing that for a performance. That's just bah.
No.
Yeah, a few gummy bears to get through to get through a D&D fight, that's one thing, but that's, I think at that point you're just getting the government to pay you to be a circus geek.
Now if you replace those with Gardetto Snackins, I'm in.
There you go.
The second greatest thing about the state of Wisconsin, after its very lax laws around access to storm sewers, the second greatest thing about the state of Wisconsin is Gardetto Snackins. So,
okay, so are you a pretzel stick guy, a Chex piece guy, the rye crisp? What is your favorite?
I am, and I am like this with Gardettos. I'm like this with any snack mix. I'm like this with M&Ms. I am a one of each in the hand, and it all goes in. So when I eat M&Ms, it's a process of lining up all of the colors. And then at the end, I'm like, okay, so what do I do? And I okay, well, here's a green one and a yellow one. That's the Packers. Here's a blue and an orange one. That's the Broncos. Okay, here's a yellow one and a red one. That's the Redskins. I don't know what they're called now. I'll put together teams, and then I'll eat those.
I love it.
Sad,
I love
really.
it.
Sad.
My favorite, and it's a tragedy. My favorite tiny snack that's not candy is Hanover's pretzel bites.
Oh, those are good. That's not a tragedy. That's a glory. Those are
No, it's a tragedy because the sweet mustard ones and the buffalo ones are my favorite.
Mm.
And when I pick the bags up and put them in my shopping cart, I can feel the 3 days of indigestion that they're going to bring me.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's a psychosomatic thing. And I'm not kidding you. When I get those and I start thinking about, oh, how good are those going to be while I'm watching a football game this weekend?
Mm-hmm.
I could just start to feel it rise a little bit. And I'm like, I'm going to go over to the pharmaceutical aisle and get some Gaviscon too.
No, well, it's a 2 parts. It's a chaser for the
exactly. Just dump the Gaviscon into a bowl, dump the Hanovers, and mix them up. So I'm getting a little bit of each. So what is next for your channel? Do you just keeping on? You got any new series starting? Anything like that?
Well, we'll make this an exclusive, first time announcement that you heard it here first.
That's right, first exclusives. We love those here.
Like I'm on the Leno show or something. So one thing is, I'm coming up on a year of my channel because I started the channel officially launched. I think it was the 24th of August, and and I think on the 24th, all I put up was a little intro video. It's the dragon flying through. It became my intro to my videos, and then on the 25th, I think I put up my first video. So first of all, I'm hoping that the Social Blade, which is a thing that analyzes statistics for pages, anticipates me hitting 1,000 subs by early September. So I'm hoping to push that up and hit 1,000 by 1 year, which would be fun. I am about to record, actually, shortly after we get finished with this. I'm going to reconfigure things here on the kitchen table. I'm going to be doing something I've been thinking about for a while, a solo adventure in the style of the one that's in the Beckme Player's Manual, the basic book Player's Manual.
Okay, yeah. Sort of a choose your own adventure thing.
Yeah, sort of a half choose your own adventure, half D&D. I want to do one of those, but as a series of YouTube videos. So it will be very short videos, like a couple of minutes long each. Some of them longer as you describe a room and that kind of stuff, but in which you take a player through an adventure, and so you get to this room, and there's 3 doors. Do you want to look at one of the doors? Do you want to search the room? Do you want to look for secret doors? Do you want to go back the way you came, kind of thing? And then up on, because there's end screens on YouTube videos, and the end screens, you have the little
right. Yeah, I've seen other videos. I've seen some videos like that. Yeah.
So then I'm going to go to the north door. I'll go to the north door. So I have the adventure written. I've got it all planned out. I mapped out how many videos I have to make, and it's a ridiculous number of videos for what's essentially a 5-6 room dungeon. It's a ridiculous number of videos you have to make just for all of the options for each of those rooms. Sure. But I'm going to start filming that and editing that, and that is going to actually be it's going to be a sort of exclusive video, because I'm also going to launch. Make sure you can kill Barkle. Barkle's not showing up in this first one. This is very low level at this first one, but I'm going to make an exclusive video for a tier of Patreon subscribers, because I'm about to start a Patreon account. Woohoo! Which I had. Yeah, I'd resisted it at first because I thought, well, what would people be supporting? I'm just playing the game with my kids and then telling people about it. But then I realized, those miniatures are starting to rack up, and the materials to make terrain is starting to cost something. So, I don't do Dwarven Forge. I make stuff out of foam and things like that. But it's still,
lots of poor people tell me that. But go on.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Padre. I really am.
Hey, if you knew what priests make, you would realize how close to the money you were there, or far from the money, as the case may be. So I thought, I'm going to go ahead, and I thought of monetizing the channel as well, and And I thought, no, I don't want to monetize the channel. And then I realized that because when the boys want to watch, they want to watch one of the episodes where I talk about their adventure, right? And we watch it on the TV. The TV doesn't have an ad blocker. It's not one of our accounts. And ads show up.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm realizing there are ads in front of my videos anyway.
Yeah.
I haven't hit 1,000. There's already ads there.
Yeah.
Someone might as well make money on it. It's not going to affect anyone else's experience. You're going to see ads one way or another, and the amount of money that I'm going to, at 1,000 subs, the amount of money I'm going to make from ads is going to be infinitesimal. Is that a word? I think I'm making that word up. I've had too much to drink.
No, it's minuscule. Well, I mean, one thing I can tell you is from like I'm Markiplier over here, like I'm Jack's Films over here, but no, seriously, I make tiny amounts of money on ad for my videos. My live streams with supers on my live streams is way more income, but you not doing live streams, but I'm just looking like right over here, which by the way, everybody go subscribe to Dungeon Minister. If you're not subscribed to Dungeon Minister, go subscribe to Dungeon Minister. If you want to see what a good D&D YouTube channel looks like. But like you get 300 and 400 views on your videos. You, I think, will be getting more money through ads than anything else. Now, when I say more money, again, I'm not, neither you or I are going to bump into each other in Fiji going, so how's the YouTube business going?
Probably not. We're not even going to, we won't even be bumping into each other, at Walmart for that.
No.
And the way I think about it too is that I know a lot of people, when they monetize, then they're worried about being demonetized and they don't want to say anything controversial. But I don't talk about controversial stuff. I just tell the story. I try to keep it light. I try to keep it, I try to keep off of anything that, not because I don't want to offend people. I'm perfectly happy offending people, but that's not what my channel does. Like, I don't talk about politics around the game. I don't care enough.
You don't do internet blood sports, which
no,
bless you.
No, I don't do that. So first of all, there's that, and plus the level of income is going to be so insignificant that I won't get my $1.50 this week.
Yeah.
Oh, well, like, what does it matter at that point? So I'm not too. Thank you, Brando. Marlon Brando just subscribed. No, Brodo, the bling bearer. God bless you. Thank
Look
you.
what they've done to my boy. Oh,
I could have been an influencer. I
could have been somebody.
So that's kind of what's coming up. There's a few other things. Like, I'm gonna, because of the Patreon thing, I've got to think of some other stuff to do. I'm going to do some kind of behind the scenes stuff as I prepare for adventures, so to let people in on some of the behind the scenes stuff of how I got from A to B.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to the next turn that's coming. I can't wait to play that Choose Your Own Adventure video series you've got planned. Are you going to shoot that in your local storm drains?
I wish I could.
Oh no.
But Wisconsin does. The ones here in town all have bars over the entrances. I mean, come on. What's that? I got to have a strength check just to get into those things. And I am not passing that.
That's 20 minutes with an angle grinder, my good man. But no, I'm regardless, I'm looking forward to it for sure. And I hope you have all the just success. I've seen your subs go up here a little bit. It's the Delver's Dungeon effect.
It is what it is. The Delver's effect. I tell you, people, that's one of the neat things is that we actually, do form a sort of spider web of connections, right? And this person watches these videos and that person watches those. And I found that the more we support each other and actually draw attention. Look, there's something cool over here. I really enjoy it. I think you would too. It doesn't detract from us. It just it just helps. It just builds.
Yeah. we're not 4 channels and public access anymore. It's like if I'm doing something at 9 o'clock and you're doing something at 9 o'clock, well, I'll watch yours at 10.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah. You get it archived anyway. So it's not a biggie.
Yeah. I mean, a rising tide lifts all boats, folks. And let me tell you what, if you like good YouTube, I mean, really good YouTube D&D content, not me umming and awing my way through 3 hours of reading a D&D book at you over the internet, please, again, subscribe to the Dungeon Minister. Top keck, great quality stuff, and I heartily recommend you do. He's the guy that made our merch, by the way.
I made that glass.
He made our merch.
It's a fine looking glass.
It is a fine
I can't
glass.
take credit for the unbreaded quote. That was
Michael Connor who stole it from Nick Arcata. But then the origins from Nick's show are from a crazy person anyway. So
unbreaded,
completely insane. So we're looking forward to it, and before I forget, though, I do want to take a minute here, and I'm only doing this before we wrap up for the evening, just because you're on the list.
I am on the list. I'm happy to be on the list.
You're on the list.
One of the things we don't subscribe to a lot of things. We don't have cable in our house. My wife has a Netflix account, so my version of what entertainment do I like, and that's what I'll support is YouTube channels that I enjoy, and this is definitely one of them. I will return some love here because I have found, look, being a priest is a lonely business, right? Because you're either hanging out with other priests, which is frankly kind of depressing, or you're hanging out with people who don't feel like they can actually talk to you because the collar, and they're like, oh, what did I just say that he's now judging me about? And I honestly, I found this real community of friends. I've got that. I know, most of the people who watch this, all I know is a screen name. Like maybe there's an avatar, but it's too small for you to make out who that is.
Yeah.
But every night, when I can, if it's not too crazy here, I've got it on, and even when I'm not responding, it's usually on as I'm loading the dishwasher or something, and it's like hanging out with a bunch of friends. So I really, really, when I decided to support the channel, it was because I actually get a lot out of hanging out here. So thank you for that.
Well, I greatly appreciate it. And down here on Classic D&D YouTube Street, we have a great community. I mean, and we're all one big happy fleet, to quote the man. So let me thank some of those folks, specifically Joshua Garlock, Lord Corion, Ricky Moreau, Mobius, Kevin Reynolds, Doomsword Deathmaster, Mark Simpson, Damien247, James F. Keck, William Smith, you, the Dungeon Minister, right there, buddy, Manny Wall, Mark Corey, Kevin Wood, Todd Sharp, the increasingly frighteningly named Carnivore Farmer, Rob Knows I Can't Say That, Chillis, Jeremy Roll, Boganora, Mikey Mank, Sky Hernstrom, Pete Sullivan, and John David. And if you're out there, if you're just checking us out for the first time, whether it's thanks to the algorithm or because I pulled you in with my intense personal charisma and magnetism, and you want to support the show, we are on Patreon and Subscribestar. But let me tell you what really rocks. Click that subscribe button, click that bell icon for notifications. That's pretty awesome too. But also, make sure you do it over on the Dungeon Minister's channel.
I'm liking this video now. I just did. There we go.
Well, I thank you very much, Padre. I really do. And thank you to everyone out there who has sat and watched. Lord Corion sneaking in the $10 super just as I was getting ready to wrap up. Thank you so much, Lord Corion. I really appreciate that. On Bode, on Brent, and Unbreaded, and bonus Bling Bearer Brodo, buddy. I'm going to stop the alliteration before I throw a gear. Mark asks, will you be playing a cleric in your solo game?
Cleric will be one of the options. I'm going to actually offer a variety of options for characters to play. I can't just uncork it and say, roll your own, makeup, whatever, because the complexity of spell casting adding to that is going to be a little much. But I'm going to have a cleric, and I think he's going to have to be a second level cleric. So there will be at least one spell slot available, a clerical spell.
Right.
A magic user, judging by what I've made, I think a low-level magic user would be chewed to pieces in a solo adventure. So it's going to have to be like fighter, cleric, dwarf. I think I'll probably offer that kind of, maybe elf, halfling. So I'm gonna roll up some pre-gen characters, or offer the option, roll your own. If you know what you're doing on this, roll your own. Just make sure they're not a total wimp, because they're going to do this alone. So.
Well, I am looking forward to it. I think it's going to be spectacular. I know everybody in our audience, again, subscribe to the channel, because you don't want to miss this. Because I've seen these choose your own adventure videos out there before, and I've always said, how cool would it be if there was like a D&D one? And we're getting one, guys. We're getting one, and that's really cool. So we're going to go ahead, I think, and we're going to call it there. I've got a thing in a little bit. Thank you very much, Dungeon Minister, for being here. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you to everybody in the audience. Thank you, Lord Corion, for the super. And who was that earlier? I gotta scroll up, because I want to get.
Corion again. I think
was it both times? It was. It was Lord Corion reaching deep into his heart and deep into his wallet, and dropping a little love. So thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic evening. I'll be back tomorrow. Speaking of playing Dungeons and Dragons, we're going to find out what's going on down there on the table with some characters fighting some gnolls. So you guys have an absolutely fantastic evening, and we'll see you next time. Peace.